Welcome, dear colleagues. We've just had 5 minutes up to now to colleagues to come. There will be certainly more coming at 1 o'clock sharp because, as you know, with core time and the time that is assigned to us and the 40 hours a week, it's always difficult to convene people for conferences. So FFP, my trade union, is organizing on a regular basis conferences of various topics. Those topics are coming to us because we have all either in our committee of FFP ideas about conferences, or it is our members or colleagues that are writing to us to give us advice on why don't you organize a conference on this and that topic. Recently we've been organizing a set of conferences on laws regarding succession. Some are going to come regarding fiscal aspects for international, for officials and agents in international and European institutions. And some colleagues have said to us, it's nice that you take care about the good health of our financial accounts and estates, but why don't you also organize conferences on how to address proper nutrition, given the last scientific advice and consideration. So we said it's a good idea. Let's try to find people knowledgeable about the subject, and let's try to organize this. So that's what we do today. So today is going to be in English, and we have a similar conference that will be held in French on May 3rd, very soon. So I see some other people coming. We'll, in a minute, give the floor to the person who came here to listen to, not to me, but to Mrs. Francotte. I welcome availability to present to you the best she knows about, and the best advice she can give to all of you and to all of us on how to better select food and organize our lunch, our breakfast and dinners in order to keep in good shape, not only fit at work, because we are not there to help the administration to put pressure on the staff, but to be resilient in all circumstances of life. So I let the floor to you, Mrs. Francotte.
Thank you. So good morning. I'm very pleased to be here to give you some nutritional advices to keep your brain in good shape. So just want to present it myself. I'm an immunologist by background, and now I'm working as a naturopath. So in fact, most people complain about brain weaknesses, so poor performance, sleep disorders, poor concentration, lack of motivation, hyperactivity, etc. And so most of us, we know that it's very important to feed well our body, but we very often forget that the same food also is needed for your brain. And the brain requires specific nutrients for an optimal functioning. So that's the aim of the topic I would like to present today. First of all, I would like to give you some definitions, because sometimes it's not clear what's the difference between burnout, depression, etc. And because burnout is a very big problem, and more people are missing work due to burnout. And in fact, this term has been put in place initially by an American psychologist, Herbert Freudenberger. Had in fact described some problems following very hard stress in helping professions, such as doctors and nurses. But now it's clear that nowadays this affects all professions, and anyone can be facing burnout. So it's a state of exhaustion that comes from a prolonged stress without a sufficient resting period for recovery. And it's surprising to constate there is no clear definition of what burnout is. So there is no clear or recognized diagnostic criteria, as in contrast to depression, for example. And so there are a lot of different symptoms I would like to highlight. So some symptoms are common between burnout and depression, and so there is no general agreement. Nevertheless, all definitions clearly show that burnouts are work-related stress. I hope that I will give some advice that will prevent you to be in burnout. So, in fact, it's a state of chronic stress, and there are 3 types of signs, and which are recognized. First of all, signs of physical and emotional exhaustion. So that means that you will be tired, you will be anxious, angry, and you can have some physical problems, pain, stomach, bowel problems, headaches, etc. The second set of symptoms related to a lack of enjoyment and motivation. So in fact you become angry, it's difficult to work well, to have good social relationships with your colleague, and it's a tendency of be detached from the environment as well. Some frustration, etc. And the third set of signs concern lack of productivity and poor performance with an increased irritability. So what's the difference between burnout and depression? As I just told before, there are very common symptoms, but there's a clear difference between symptoms. In burnout, they are more work-related. In contrast to depression, it concerns all areas of life. Nevertheless, people with burnout may increase the risk of getting depression as well, of course. So now I'm going to talk about stress. Of course, we are all always stressed by different events. And stress is not a bad thing, in fact. Initially, it's a normal reaction the body will put in place to react facing a stressor. A stressor is something which can be positive and that will help you to move and to put new projects in place, for example. A stressor can be negative. It's the way we appraise this stressor. And if we appraise this stressor as a threat or a negative challenge, then the body will react, and will we have a difficulty in our minds, the mood will be affected as well. But stress, as I just said, is a physiological reaction with a lot of different things put in place. Biological, physiological, and psychological reactions. And the aim is just to come back to homeostasis. What does that mean? It's to be in good shape, to come back to a constant internal environment which is good for you. And this homeostasis is disrupted when you are facing a stressor. And the body, the normal reaction with its physiology is to come back to homeostasis. So he will put in place what is needed to come back to this normal environment. And so I just would like to highlight some differences between performance and stress. In fact, when stress level is low, we could be inactive and bored. So we need some stress to have the energy to put new projects in place. And so when performance demands increase, we will be motivated, we will be focused, but to a certain point. If the stress level is too high, we'll become fatigued, exhausted, and if it's prolonged, that can lead to burnout and exhaustion. Hopefully, the body is quite intelligent, has put in place different systems that can lead the body to adapt, and so to put a physiological response in place. And this involves two main systems. First of all, the adrenal hormones, which are produced by the adrenal glands. And the adrenal glands are just put like on the top of your kidneys. And the second system is neurotransmitters. So, in this conference, I will emphasize how can we boost neurotransmitters and how can we handle with adrenal hormones that will help us to put in place this adaptive physiological response and adapt to the stress. And in fact, Hans Selye put a model with a general adaptation syndrome where he described what's happened after stress. And he described 3 stages. The first one is the alarm reaction. The second is the resistance phase, and the last one, exhaustion. And the alarm reaction is very useful to respond to the stressor. It's an immediate response. And in order to put that in place, the body will mobilize internal systems and processes to reduce the threat and come back to homeostasis. So that's what he called the flight or fight response. And this is mediated by 2 types of hormones, adrenaline, or usually we know adrenaline, and cortisol. So the alarm reaction is just the physiological response to adapt. And it will allow you to be able to run, you'll be ready for action. So these hormones will help you to do that by, for example, the cortisol release will increase blood pressure, will release the sugar in your blood to provide energy. They will have an impact on your breathing, and adrenaline will be released to increase strength for fight or flight. And of course, it's logical that some functions will be disrupted, will be stopped, on hold. For example, digestion, urine production, that's no time to do that. There is one priority, which is fight or flight. And so this first reaction is normal, and then the body will come back to homeostasis. So it's not bad. The problem if the stressor continues, then the body will use reserves to maintain homeostasis. And they will have impact on health, and I will discuss later on what impacts this resistance will provide. And the last stage is exhaustion. In that case, it's bad for the body because it will not be cope well with stress. And the body functions will be affected, and especially immune function that will be depressed. And that cause also some damage to tissue, organs, etc. So this is the 3 stages I put in this slide. So the alarm stage, which is good, the resistance stage when stress is prolonged, and finally exhaustion stage. And this stage will provide burnout. In that case, your adrenal gland will be exhausted, fatigued, and will not be able to cope with stress. So in fact, as I told you, 2 main systems are involved. First of all, cortisol, and the other one, neurotransmitters. And I will emphasize how can we do with nutrition to improve the levels of the right neurotransmitters at the right time. And burnout is characterized by a drop of both systems. And the activity of these hormones are regulated by body clocks. So that's very nice. That's very good news. That means that it's possible by nutrition to have an impact on these body clocks. So, and I will give you the tools.
Just 1 second, because I see that a lot of people are still standing up. There is seats available there at the back, and my secretary is going to bring some new seats on this side as well. For you not to be too much stressed by the presentation if you stay. There is some seats available already now, and some more will come. Okay. Sorry.
Okay. as I said, there are two main systems involved, cortisol and neurotransmitters. So I will take some minutes to explain you the role of cortisol. Because when we know what's happening, you can put in place the right things. So first of all, cortisol. What's cortisol? It's a stress hormone produced by the adrenal glands. And it's very useful because it will aid metabolism of fats, proteins, sugars, so carbs, carbohydrates, and it will increase glucose levels in the blood. And is very useful and required to provide energy. And it's very helpful in the short term. But it would be very harmful if stress is prolonged and if cortisol is released too high. It will have an harmful effect, especially on the human system. And so cortisol is very key. We need cortisol to be alive. First of all, for three reasons, mainly. First of all, it will increase blood sugar. Secondly, it has anti-inflammatory activity. So it's a very strong molecule that it's critical for to fight inflammation. So it will neutralize inflammation. And on the other hand, it's also very important in the first stage of reaction to cope with stress. When the alarm is put in place, we need to come back to normal balance. We need to come back to homeostasis. And that's the role of cortisol. So cortisol has an anti-inflammatory activity. And he will inhibit the action of the first stage of stress responses mediated by adrenaline. And if it's not the case, you will see emotional outbursts due to high adrenaline. And it's important to note that the cortisol levels are different during the day or in the evening. And in fact, it's very important. You need cortisol. You need cortisol here in the morning to wake up. It's required. And at the evening, the cortisol levels must be low, otherwise you will not sleep. So the clear relationship will be between the levels of cortisol and the impact on your life. If it's too high at the wrong time, you will have problems. So what's in terms of cortisol production regarding the three stages of reaction that I just mentioned before? Stress stimulates production of cortisol by the adrenal glands. So it's good during the first stage. What's happened during the second stage? The second stage, there is a prolonged stress. So that means that the adrenal glands will produce cortisol, and there will be an overproduction of cortisol during a long time. And this production of high level of cortisol will affect your body. And I will give you the symptoms and the effects that you can have after in this resistant phase when you are trying to resist to stress, and you will have high cortisol produced with very bad effects on your body. And during the third stage, what's happened? The adrenal glands try to resist to produce cortisol as much as they can, but they are fatigued. That means they are not more able to produce cortisol, and the cortisol level will be very low. That will produce also symptoms and have bad effects in your body and in your brain as well. So what happens in the second phase, the resistant phase? And when you have cortisol, there's a lot of symptoms, and you will receive the slides after this presentation. I don't want to go through all the symptoms, just one would like to highlight two symptoms. One symptom is the fact that it will impact your sleep. So you will have difficulty sleeping, insomnia. The second also, it can affect your weight. And I would like to emphasize these two symptoms and explain why it will affect your sleeping and your weight. In fact, as I just told you before, there is a cycle in the production of cortisol. This is the normal production of cortisol when you are not stressed. And when you are stressed, you may see this is the green curve, and which with a higher production of cortisol in the resistant phase. That means the cortisol is too high in the morning, but it's also too high in the evening. And that means that you will have a very bad sleep because of that. And you will be always under pressure because of cortisol is always produced at a higher manner. So we should reduce the level of cortisol to be in good mood. The second impact of high cortisol is weight gain. Why? Because when chronic stress is there, you will have an increased production of cortisol. And cortisol is useful to release glucose in your blood in the alarm reaction for fight or flight. But here, you will have a huge amount of glucose released in your blood. And if glucose is released in your blood, your pancreas will produce insulin. And insulin will help to use glucose as fuel and for the energy of your cells. But increased insulin will provide inflammation. And at the end, is when there is too high insulin, the organs will not be able to respond in a good fashion to insulin. That means that you will have glucose remaining in your blood. And this glucose will be stored as fats because the glucose is bad. Too high glucose in your blood is bad. So the body will store this glucose as fats and it will weight gain. And on the other hand, the body will not be able to remove excess sugar from the blood. That's insulin resistance, which is a huge problem nowadays, not only because of stress, but because of the impact of the diet we have. So we are not able to handle well the glucose levels, and there are fat storage and weight gain. So that's just why high cortisol is related to the second phase. This is the resistant phase. When we are going to the exhaustion phase, then that's another story. The cortisol levels are quite low, and they will give you other symptoms. First of all, anxiety, depression, fatigue, extreme fatigue, excessive emotions, and also sugar and salt cravings. And you will gain weight also maybe because of sugar and salt cravings. And as cortisol has anti-inflammatory activity, of course when you have low cortisol, you will be inflamed. So you will promote inflammatory diseases. And you will be prone to bacterial and viral infections. So that means that you very often when you are in burnout, you are very susceptible to infections as well. And the reason is because low cortisol is produced. And when you are in this last phase, you're facing adrenal fatigue with a lot of symptoms. And I just do not want to go through, but this will impact the functioning of your body and the functioning of your brain. So I just told you, first of all, the definition of burnout versus depression. And so I explain you there are two main systems involved. Cortisol first. The cortisol can be high, the cortisol can be low. In both cases, they will impact your functioning. The second systems, I would like to emphasize, are neurotransmitters. What's the role of neurotransmitters? The brain contains a lot of cells, 100 billion of nerve cells, called neurons. And these neurons must speak to each other. And this is done through chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. And these neurotransmitters will regulate all the function of your blood, of your brain. Sorry, your mood, your motivation, your performance, the way you will sleep, etc. And what is important to have in mind that in order to produce these neurotransmitters, you need to eat right. You need to eat proteins. Why? Because most of these neurotransmitters are made from what is called essential amino acids. That means that coming from proteins. Essential mean that you're not able to synthesize this amino acid. They need to be provided by food. So you need to have protein in your food, in your diet. What are the main neurotransmitters to have a very useful and functional brain? You have neurotransmitters which will help you to give energy, to initiate your action. It's dopamine. To continue your action, it's noradrenaline. So it's useful in the morning to have energy, to work well, to be motivated, to go at your work, or to be motivated to do what you like to do also. And at the end of the day, you need to sit down and you need breaks. That's serotonin that will do the job. And serotonin will be transformed into melatonin, which is needed for sleep. So I will explain you how to boost all these neurotransmitters, and what is important to know, it's important to boost at the right moment, when you need it. There are two other neurotransmitters. One is GABA. GABA is the Zen molecule. It will provide you, it's an anti-anxiety activity. And the other one, which is quite important as well, is acetylcholine, because it's required for a good memory. Just keep in mind, all these neurotransmitters can be made if you eat proteins. Otherwise, it will be difficult to produce them. What's dopamine? Dopamine is the motivation molecule. It's pleasure and reward. So you need dopamine to wake up, to be motivated, to do things you like. If the levels are low, you will have low energy, you will be fatigued, you will have difficulty to wake up, and also to have energy, you will eat sugar, caffeine, etc. And dopamine is the precursor for the other neurotransmitter that will act to keep your action going during the day. So it's noradrenaline. Now I just give you the amino acid needed to produce dopamine. Why? I don't want to bore you, but it's important to, after that, to know where you can find tyrosine in your food. Of course, to produce dopamine, you need to give tyrosine, so you need to eat food containing this amino acid. Serotonin is the brake. It's the happiness molecule. So it associates with feelings of well-being, also regulates sleep and appetite. If you miss serotonin, your appetite will increase. And if serotonin is low, you will be depressed, anxious, you will be impulsive, get sleep disorders and eating disorders. And serotonin, if it's missing, you will have strong sugar cravings. Also, have in mind that most of these neurotransmitters are also located in the gut. So if your gut is not working well, you will have an impact on the production of these neurotransmitters as well. And this serotonin is produced from tryptophan. So again, tryptophan is in some food, so it will be important to eat this food at sometimes in the day. That will help you to produce your serotonin at the right moment. So in fact, there are three types of neurotransmitters that are key for the brain-body connections I just mentioned. So to provide energy, dopamine, the brakes, serotonin, and GABA. GABA will regulate the others and will provide you calm. This is Zen molecule. And there is another one, neurotransmitter, which is important for memory and mental ability, which is acetylcholine. And in fact, reduced levels, of course, you will have impact on memory, and that's the case when you are suffering from Alzheimer's disease. There's a lack of acetylcholine, and it's synthesized from choline. And the best food source is egg yolk. Now, I just spent some time to explain you the basics, because I think it's important now to have the background to give the best nutritional advices for an optimal brain function. So to feed our brain, of course we need to provide nutrient-rich food. And for that, we need to select mostly, would be better to use local and seasonal products and food that provide from rich soils, which are not depleted from minerals, etc. That's always the case. And if possible, organic would be a best choice to avoid additives, harmful molecules, endocrine disruptors, etc. And you need to provide what we call macronutrients. That means the building blocks, proteins, fats, and carbohydrate, sugars, but the right sugars. And that will be used for neuron activities to provide energy as well. And you will also require to have specific micronutrients, and that will be key to produce your neurotransmitters. They are involved in all the reactions that will occur in your brain, and to produce these neurotransmitters, and they will play a role as cofactors. So the first thing is to provide you good food. Okay, that's the first step, but that's not enough. That you need to have an optimal digestion as well. And so that should be work from mouth to intestine, and sometimes it's not working well because of insufficient showing, for example, because of stomach insufficient production of acid and bowel problem, etc. So we do not have always an optimal digestion, and we have gut problems, and the consequence is poor assimilation of nutrients. And stress is affecting also our diet and the way we are using our diet. In fact, when we are stressed, we will be more prone to eat sugars, saturated fat, refined products, etc. And stress will have an impact on our digestion and our intestinal barrier. So that means that we know that stress is pro-inflammatory and will affect our gut microbiota, and also we promote leaky gut syndrome. And the impact will have that your nutrients, even if you're eating well, you will have a poor assimilation of your nutrient as well. And there are a lot of clinical data showing that there is a link between the gut and the brain. So you need to have a gut with a good flora to avoid depression. And a link between gut and some diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson. We know there's the gut is very bad in these patients. And to cope with stress, we will use our vitamins and minerals as well. So we need a huge amount of vitamins and minerals when we are stressed, and especially magnesium. So I just just want to go through the different micronutrients that are needed, what type of macronutrients should be selected for an optimal brain functioning. First of all, sugars. Sugar, glucose, is essential for the brain because it's the fuel to provide energy. That means that you need a steady supply of glucose. And we need to select the right sugars in the food to provide this steady supply of glucose. If blood glucose falls too low, your mood will be impacted. You will become irritable, aggressive, etc. So that means that unbalanced blood sugar will affect your mood, and that's what it's called, the blood sugar roller coaster. Just explain here. I must introduce glycemic index. What is glycemic index? You have carbohydrate with high glycemic index, moderate glycemic index, and low glycemic index. It just refers to the increase of blood, how rapid is the increase of sugar in your blood. When you are eating high glycemic index food, that's the red curve. You will have a rapid rise in blood sugar here. You will be what is called hypoglycemia. But it's not bad, it's bad for the body. So insulin will be produced. A large amount of insulin to remove the glucose from the blood, allowing the glucose enter the cells to provide energy. This will follow by a rapid fall. And when you are here, you are not very happy because the level of sugar is too low in your blood and you are in hypoglycemia. And it's a stress for your body. So a stress message will be sent to the brain. Please release cortisol. We need sugar in the blood. So cortisol will be released. And cortisol will help the glucose coming back in your blood and coming back to normal. But as you may see, this is like a yo-yo balance between high and low blood sugar levels. And the body does not like this, and the brain does not like it. The brain requires a constant supply of glucose. If you are here, that's okay, but if you are here, your mood will be affected. So it's logical to select carbohydrate that will be better in terms of sustaining glucose in your blood in a different manner, and to select food that contain a low glycemic load. It's a green curve. There will be a slow increase in blood sugar and followed by gradual fall. And this is the right carbohydrate to provide for an optimal functioning of your brain. So, the nutritional advices will be to avoid high glycemic index foods. So where could you find these high glycemic foods? In the refined grains product, the white flour, the white sugar, sweeteners, etc. Overcooked food or mashed food raise this glycemic index. So select carbohydrates with a low glycemic index, rich in fiber, and combined with protein and fats. Why? Because they will be digested in a different way. They will take time to digest them. So that means that the glucose that will be released will help your brain all the time. Let's go to the fats. In fact, the fats are very important. Why? Because you have 60% of the brain's dry weight composed of fatty acids. Okay, so that means that if you want to have a healthy brain, you have to eat healthy fat. It's logical. What are healthy fats? What type of fats are crucial for an optimal brain functioning? It's omega-3. because they are essential to ensure fluidity of the cell membrane and the neuronal function. And among them, maybe some of you know DHA, which is DHA is present in fatty fish, and there's a lot of clinical and scientific publications showing that you can prevent depression if you are eating DHA. And so omega-3 have anti-inflammatory activities and very needed and crucial for an optimal functioning of your neurons. And an optimal ratio of omega-6 versus omega-3 is 4:1. And as depicted in this slide, as you will see in Europe, it's the current ratio is 15:1, and even worse in the US. And omega-6 is inflammatory, in contrast to omega-3. So that means that if you have a bad ratio, a lot of omega-6 and few omega-3, we are in inflammatory all the time, and your brain cannot work quite easily. So we need a good balance between omega-3 and 6. And omega-6, you can find a huge number of different foods. Some vegetable oils, corn, soybean, sunflower, etc. And the omega-3 you can find in some oil, and I have a slide on that just after this one, and mostly oily fish. So be careful in introducing enough omega-3 in your diet.
Can indicate to those colleagues that are making pictures sometimes that the slides will be made available to you anyway. So, in particular because some of them it's written in very small letters, so it will be more easy for you to take advantage of them later on.
All the details are in the slide, so yes. Okay. So where could you find omega-3? So select oily fish. So and also plant oils such as colza, walnut oil, linseed oil, etc. And you should eat omega-3 every day. 1 or 2 tablespoons of omega-3 rich oil. Fatty fish at least 2 times a week. And not at least 100 milligram per day. So that means 400 milligram per week. That's a lot. Usually we do not reach this amount. Use olive oil for cold and hot cooking. And I just have to mention the omega-3 oil cannot use for cooking. They must be kept in the fridge. Yes, they must be kept in the fridge. Otherwise, they will not be useful and even more sometimes dangerous for your body.
Question to that?
Maybe later on.
If it's just one, maybe.
Just directly to this one.
Yes?
When you look at all those oils...
Your mic, use your mic.
So when you...
Your mic.
When you present all those different oils at the supermarket, for example, they are all not in a refrigerator. So what does it mean for the quality of this oil?
So when they are open. They can be kept at regular conditions, but when they are open, then you need to keep the omega-3 in the fridge. Always, because otherwise they will oxidize, and it's very bad, very bad. But don't put your olive oil in the fridge, because otherwise it will be very hard to use it after. Okay, and concerning fats, the good fats are omega-3. Don't forget to eat saturated fats. Saturated fat cholesterol is good for your brain. The problem is to avoid high amount of cholesterol, which is bad. But cholesterol is needed. For Alzheimer's, cholesterol is needed. And sometimes we do not eat enough cholesterol because of what is said in the press, etc. but on the other hand, there is some fat you have to avoid. These are trans fats. And what are trans fats? They are here. They are the fats you are eating when you are eating fast food and processed snacks. So, avoid trans. Eat some saturated and eat a lot of these two kinds of fats. So omega-3, olive oil, etc. And I don't want to just go through because you will receive this slide. Okay. So I discussed the different macronutrients that is required. So you need good carbohydrates, good sugars, and you need good fats as well. Now, what's happening if you want to produce your neurotransmitters? So, you need to have the raw material. The raw material are amino acids, and they come from food proteins. So you need to eat food proteins, and you need to digest them. When you have the raw material, for example, tyrosine, that's used for dopamine, or the tryptophan that's used for serotonin, then you need to have cofactors that are required to transform the raw material in your neurotransmitters. And in fact, I'm sorry, I don't know, maybe you cannot quite easily read what all these cofactors, but in summary, almost all the vitamins and minerals. So vitamin B, vitamin C, iron, zinc, magnesium, copper, etc. are very crucial. And if you miss these cofactors, even if you have your raw material, that will be enough to produce enough neurotransmitters. And we often forget the crucial role of these cofactors: iron, zinc, magnesium, etc. So to produce serotonin, what should be done? So the building block is tryptophan, an essential amino acid that meaning it must be found in the diet. I just give you the natural sources of tryptophan. And the best sources are protein-rich foods: turkey, poultry, some dairy products, cottage cheese, etc. To produce dopamine, the building blocks are two other amino acids, namely tyrosine and phenylalanine. And again, the main sources are protein-rich foods. And we need cofactors: vitamin B, a lot, vitamin C, vitamin D, and different minerals. Just for you, you will have a table where could you find all these B vitamins. And what is important to have in mind, that of course you need to eat the right food, but you need also this food at the right timing. So the activity and levels of these neurotransmitters depend on food intake, and change in nutrient intake can affect your mood, but the timing of eating will also have an impact. And the timing of eating will have impact that are positive or negative. So it's important to rely on chrononutrition. And chrononutrition, in fact, follow the daily body's natural rhythms and enzymatic secretions. So that means that you will eat food at a time of the day when they are more useful, so it's logical, to meet your body's energy requirements. And the good news, in fact, by applying this chrononutrition, you will increase the dopamine and serotonin levels at the right timing. So, how can we do? Just follow the rule: have a breakfast like a king, a lunch like a prince, and have a dinner like a pauper. Not easy sometimes when we are working. Usually, the bigger we have a dinner like a breakfast. We have a dinner like a king usually. If we want to lose weight, we should eat a lot during breakfast and have a dinner like a pauper. Proteins at breakfast will provide satiation. And we know that we are eating carbohydrates. They will increase your weight and sugar craving. So by reducing carbohydrates at breakfast and by increasing protein, you will lose weight. And you will be in good shape. So, how can we produce dopamine? When dopamine is needed? Is needed in the morning to help you to wake up, to initiate your action, and to produce adrenaline to continue your action. So you need dopamine in the morning, not in the evening. So that means that you need to provide by the food the raw material to produce dopamine. So 1,000 sources should be provided during breakfast and also by midday. And what is important to know in the fact that you have to avoid fast carbohydrates at the same time. If you are eating 1,000 sources with fast carbohydrates, your 1,000 will not go into the brain. They will go into your muscle. So it's okay if you want to make a physical, to monk some exercise in the morning, but if you want to have a good brain functioning, you need to eat proteins with no fast carbohydrates during your breakfast. And to produce serotonin is useful at the end of the day. It's to break, and it's useful because it will produce melatonin. So it's logical to provide the raw material at the end of the day. So provide tryptophan sources around 4 p.m. and in the evening. And in that case, it's just the reverse for tryptophan as compared to dopamine. In that case, you need carbohydrates to allow tryptophan to go into your brain. It's not just the reverse. For dopamine, to produce dopamine, you need proteins, no carbohydrates, and to produce serotonin, you need tryptophan and carbohydrates. It's a reason why very often we have sugar cravings at 4 p.m. And we have sugar cravings because your brain tells us, please give me tryptophan. That should be useful to synthesize serotonin. And it asks you to eat carbohydrates at 4 p.m. because it's trying to say, I need to make my serotonin. Please eat carbohydrates that would allow the entry of tryptophan into your brain. So what should be on the menu? So that means that for breakfast and midday, it should contain proteins, a lot of proteins, and few carbs. Some maybe no fast carbohydrates. So that means no carbohydrates with high glycemic index. During snack and evening dinner, carbs, vegetables, mostly, and very few proteins. And to ensure good sleeping, do not eat late and during the night. So breakfast should be based on proteins, good fat, and as few fast carbohydrates as possible. So maybe you will be surprised, I don't put chocolate. I don't put fast carbohydrates in the breakfast. I put chicken, turkey, eggs, some goat or sheep cheese, ham. And if you are lacking dopamine, and if you follow this type of protein, your energy will be higher. because you will produce more dopamine. If you are eating this kind of food, in fact, you promote serotonin. So in the morning, you say, you tell your body, please go sleep. That's not what we want to do. So please tell your body it's time for you to wake up and to have energy. So provide your body the right food to do that. This is this one. Energy linked with what you will eat in the morning. Okay. For midday, the best food would be protein, vegetable, and some carbohydrates. Meat, fatty fish, etc. Enough vegetables. With of course, good omega-3 oil. And some carbohydrates. But only 1 tablespoon, and usually we are eating more than that. To prepare your night, it's time to produce your serotonin. So it's time to give tryptophan to make the body, because we need time to synthesize serotonin. Tryptophan must go into the brain, so it will take time. So provide tryptophan sources when it's required at 4 p.m. And as I told before, you need some carbohydrate to allow the passage of tryptophan into the brain. So I give you the tryptophan sources, so you will receive these slides. And the evening dinner, it would be better to have a food rich in tryptophan with some carbohydrates and few proteins. And usually we are doing the reverse. So here are some information regarding the tryptophan, the top tryptophan foods. So we find poultry, in some dairy products, cottage cheese, the milk. My grandmother always told me, please drink some milk in the evening. Now I know why. Because milk is rich in tryptophan. That provides a good sleep. Bananas always, sweet potatoes, good tryptophan food, sources. So the key messages for today is that the fact that food can promote the proper functioning of the brain, and of course the aim is to provide this food all at different stages. Do not wait to be in burnout. So of course for prevention is key. So if you are stressed, if your neurotransmitters are below the normal level, so provide the right food to promote their synthesis, to give you energy and help you to sleep well. So it will be important to have a diet rich in nutriment. So that means not overcook, fresh, sufficient vegetable and fruit, because there are plenty of vitamins as well. Eat good fats, omega-3. If you have just keep one thing in mind, it's omega-3. And the other thing I would like to emphasize is to right food at the right timing. So proteins at breakfast. And also try as much as possible to avoid carbohydrates with high glycemic index. Voila.
Thank you very much for this presentation. Again, all the slides will be made available to you because we will send by leaflet, by mail, even the video of the presentation that was made here, plus the slides, and it will be made available on our website as well. We'll indicate this later on. So it's time for questions. I will go from right to left. Okay, we have this here.
What about vegetarians?
Use your mic, please.
What about vegetarians?
Yes, yes, it's difficult, I know. So we are planning to give another conference in June,
Yeah, there's another conference in June for vegetarians and vegans as well. But you can give some hints.
Yes. In fact, I know it's because I have a lot of patients who are vegetarian. So the problem is it's very difficult to produce the dopamine if you are vegetarian. So that's a problem. So that means, so of course, I'm totally respecting the choices of everybody. So, but there is no, in that case, when a vegetarian has dopamine low dopamines, you need to use complements. You need to complement.
What synthesized?
Yes. No, you need to give complements with tyrosine, etc. Because there is no clue. There is no clue.
Thank you.
Monsieur ici.
So at one slide, I think I saw that you excluded tuna, and the other one it was with it. So
in fact, tuna is containing a lot of omega-3, but it's a big fish, and also containing a lot of metals. That's the reason.
What is the role of bread in the diet? Because I don't think I have seen that in your slides specifically mentioned. Thank you.
Yes, I put some bread, but you have to select the right bread. And so it would be nice to have like a Essene bread, for example. And you know what is Essene? No? Essénien in French? Essenian bread? You don't know? Okay. How? In fact, I put here. So the best would be spelt bread. Okay? And so it should be moderate in starchy food because spelt bread, you should select complex carbohydrates. If you have white bread, it's working like a fast carbohydrates. Okay, if you have fibers and whole bread, you will behave like a complex carbohydrate. So it's not so bad.
And you would recommend to eat that more with breakfast than with dinner, or is it something that bread can be included at any?
Yeah. I think we are eating too much bread. You don't need to eat bread every time, so we can avoid bread in the morning. So you could eat some rice, for example, in the morning. So just follow the Asian eating preference. Yes, Chinese, etc. You could put instead of bread other cereals, and it would be better also for your gut.
There's two ladies in the back there, and then this side. Yeah.
Just a short question about one of the type of the fish which was not mentioned on the slides. It's a salmon, so it's good to avoid it or to eat it.
Yes, but the best is to prefer smallest fish as possible, and then salmon you can eat once a week, for example. But salmon is bigger than the other, so the small fishes. So and there are salmon which are contaminated with heavy metals. That's always the same problem.
It's tuna.
Yes. So salmon is okay, but tuna is too big very often, and it's very difficult to find some sources of oily fish devoid of heavy metals. So that's a problem. So the small fish as possible.
we'll come there and come back here later on.
I wanted to ask you about the cortisol. I've heard that practicing coherence cardiaque, an exercise, 5 minutes in the morning, lunch and dinner, 5 seconds inspiration, 5-second exhalation, helps regulate the cortisol, but I don't know if that's very scientifically proven or not.
Yes, of course, this conference was just focused on nutrition, but of course you have a lot of other natural ways of helping you and reducing cortisol. By this is I think there are some scientific publications about cardiac coherence, okay, as well as meditation, relaxation, massages. So they all have impact. The way you are breathing also. If you are breathing here, you will be in stress. If you are breathing through your your gut, your belly, you will put your body in a non-stress situation. So it will be better. So.
I had a question. You mentioned during lunch the quantities of food, but in breakfast and dinner, what are the quantities there, please?
Yes, I didn't put it. I can, if you want, I can put the quantities in the and send this version to. Okay.
This side, and I will come back later on. Lady.
Okay, thank you. Just a question, because you didn't talk about vegetable juices. What's the advantage or the disadvantage of that?
Yes, you're right. The vegetable juices are very nice. They will provide a lot of vitamins, minerals, etc. So when I put vegetables and fruits, I didn't mention vegetable juice. And in fact, it's very useful way of providing a lot of vitamins. Because when you are eating a very small amount of vegetable juice, it will contain a lot of vitamins. So it's very nice, especially if you have a gut which is inflammatory, and in that case sometimes you cannot. The food is inflammatory, and you don't eat enough vegetable and fruits because of that. Yes.
It's better in the morning, or?
Well, you have, if it's the first time, just eat a small glass in the morning or sometimes it can boost you. So it depends on what type of vegetables you put in. Because also I put some ginger and turmeric also, and that can boost you. So you can put in your juice aromats, or some ginger, turmeric, and it's very good because they have anti-inflammatory activities. So it's good for everything. So, and also for the taste.
Microphone.
What do you recommend for persons who have problems digesting fibers, and for which actually the most recommended things to eat are exactly pasta and this sort of?
I'm sorry, what problems do they have?
Like for example, inflammatory diseases, just as you said.
Of course, well, this nutritional advices were if you have no gut problems. In terms of, there are general information. Of course, we need to adapt the nutritional advices according your gut, your digestion, etc. If you are inflammatory, if your gut digestive system is inflammatory, is that your question? No. Yes. In that case, what's happening? Say you're not able to the fibers will inflame you. Okay. So in that case, you have to select, for example, juice without fibers. So if you are drinking vegetable juice, there are no fibers. So it's the first thing. Otherwise, you can put some other fruits, superfoods, like seaweeds, is that? Seaweeds, or you can also put some, for example, spirulina, you know spirulina, chlorella, etc., that can provide what is missing in your diet. And also you need to cook your vegetables because the raw vegetables will not be nice for your gut. And you need to select the right vegetables depending on the fiber content. So you need to individualize the nutrition diet in that case, of course.
Okay, I come back on this second. You?
Can you tell me what type of oil the coconut oil is under your?
Coconut oil contains saturated fat, so I would say it's bad, and it's not the case. In fact, because now there are more and more publications showing the benefit of coconut oil, because it contains different molecules that could be very useful. And the recommendation should be to cook with coconut oil, and also, for example, for Alzheimer's disease, or in times when you are in insulin resistance, or when you have diabetes, please eat and drink coconut oil. And there are some, and also useful for cancer patients, because for cancer patients, you should avoid as much as possible sugars, because sugars will provide energy to cancer cells. So you will select all the type of fuels for your body that cannot be used by cancer cells. And coconut oil is the right choice. And it's possible to find also what they call TCM, which is it's part of coconut oil that can be used, for example, in Alzheimer's patients, and very, very tremendous effect also. And this TCM also can be used if you have diabetes or for cancer patients as well.
Just there, and then you.
Well, I just want to say the classical lifestyle of European grown-up is eat croissant with Nutella for breakfast, pasta at lunch, and a steak or fish at night. So that's the opposite of what you're suggesting. Do you have any ready-made tips how to change from?
Okay. I know. So it depends on what are your situation. If you are in deep your dopamine levels are 0, of course it's required to adapt this kind of diet. Okay. And if you are okay, more or less okay, of course you can make a mix. And so sometimes it's difficult to change the habits. And nutrition is part of our family, social aspect. So it's very hard to change. So it depends. If you want to have energy, do you want to stay to have your energy in the morning or not? So try, and we'll see the difference. If you are eating without sugars, you will have energy. And after 1 week, people see the difference. So they are convinced that it's better to eat this kind of food when dopamine levels are quite 0. But of course you could combine, just say, okay, I understand that your breakfast is choco, Nutella, bread, etc. So please try just to put 1 egg, some ham, keep 1 tartine, just some bread with chocolate, just 1, reduce. Then you try to reduce and to increase. And also the problem is the evening, because of course so very often it's the big meal.
What should you do in the evening? Could you just change the slide?
It was I do not give a lot of recommendations. So that means in the evening that should be a soup, for example, salads, etc. And a few proteins that with less than 100 grams poultry, fish, no red meat. If you put red meat to they will have an impact on your sleep. So what I just usually recommend, instead of eating a big dinner, please just eat as the family. Eat the same as your husband, if it's a woman, of your children, etc. And keep part of your dinner for lunch that you can eat the day after. Or for breakfast, yes. You can eat avocado, salmon in the morning.
Let's try.
So yes, instead of eating a big dinner, you just keep part of your dinner for your lunch. So it's easy.
I agree that we should privilege food grown organically and fish that is good. Nevertheless, the position that the union has taken is that organically growing food is not sustainable. Now, we have a big granary in Europe. We are one of the world's granaries. So we could perhaps focus more on providing good food to Europeans. So this is more a message to my colleagues. Okay? Let's provide good food to Europeans instead of focusing on exporting a lot and having bad food in Europe. And I think we owe it to our children, because for their parents it's too late now. But we owe it to our children that when they grow up, they have good salmon for breakfast instead of being afraid of it. And they have good salad for dinner and things like that. So please, dear colleagues, let's change this position we have taken with pesticides and insecticides. Let's see if we can make the future better for our kids.
Thank you.
One from the table?
No, the Commissioner, it's material, yeah. Let me give you an example. When I make my salad and I isolate myself in the family, because I'm German, that's already a disadvantage. My wife is Polish, she reads a lot about nutrition, and I say, well, the Italian model makes you healthy. Now, I take a lot of normal green salad, that's a very German thing, and on this I put a lot of onions. This makes me isolated in the family especially. And I put thyme and parsley and so on, like Simon and Garfunkel. Then I put cream. No Italian would tolerate this. So cream and what else? This is a question. Oil and aceto balsamico di Modena. What do you think about that? And especially the question, aceto, vinegar, Modena. Now, especially the faith question in our family is, my wife says one can use colza, and as another colza, it's an important product for European Union, I think, and then she says line oil, and I say, of course, as an Italophile, I was olive oil instead of colza. What do you think of that, and other oils?
But olive oil does not contain omega-3. So that's the first problem. So it's very nice, but there is no omega-3 within olive oil.
So my wife is right.
So olive oil is nice, very nice for cooking, etc. Containing a lot of omega-9. It's the Mediterranean diet for a good heart, preventing cardiovascular disease, etc. So it's already very important, but it doesn't contain omega-3. And the problem with omega-3, there are few possible choices. So you have colza, lean. The problem with lean is it can become quite toxic if you are not using lean. You need to keep it in the fridge, use within 3 months, etc. So, and also I didn't mention the fact that, in fact, the best if you are if you are fatigued and your adrenal glands are empty, eat fish. Why? Because they will provide the ready-to-use omega-3. Because otherwise, the omega-3 present in oils must be transformed by the body to be used. And sometimes, and you need minerals, vitamins to do that. And very often you will eat oils containing omega-3, and they will not be transformed in useful components. On the other hand, if you are eating fish, they already contain DHA, EPA, the components that can be already immediately useful for your body.
Like in sardines.
Like sardines, yeah. Okay, there's a reason why eating DHA has a tremendous effect on depression. So people, and there was a link, and if the same people were eating oils containing omega-3, there was not the same effect.
Okay, I'm often depressed when I have to deal with DGHR. But again, the concrete question: if I come with my big oil bottle for the salad, what is the best then, Lein or Colza?
I would say never use the same thing all the time. Change.
Madame,
En fait, yes, I have a question about, you said a light meal at 4 p.m. Why did you put eggs? Because eggs is only, it's a protein, it should be in the morning.
You're right. In fact, it depends on the amount you will eat. For example, because eggs contain a lot of tryptophan as well. Of course, you know it's difficult for you. I need to split what should be eaten in the morning, etc. But of course, when you are eating proteins in the morning, they will also help you to produce serotonin, of course. Also, but add it. The fact that you will add tryptophan sources at 4 p.m. will increase the level of serotonin. And it depends on the amount of proteins you will put. You can eat some proteins at 4 p.m. Don't eat 4 eggs. Just one is okay. And sometimes egg is so useful at 4 p.m. if you have sugar cravings also.
According with this, the mayonnaise, it's okay because it contains oil and egg.
What type of oil are you using to make that?
I'm buying the mayonnaise.
Ah, okay, so that's all it's saturated fat. Why? Because if it's good fat, you do not keep them for a long time. So all the fats that can be if for long storage, they always contain saturated fat because they are stable. If they are not saturated, they are not stable. So that's the reason why you don't find if you want to buy them, usually. You need to prepare them.
You suggest a lot of proteins. Is on longer term there's a risk if you eat too much proteins or?
Of course, you have, to individualize your advices, and so it depends also on the person, and you need to keep in mind if you don't change your diet from one day to another day and change everything and put a lot of proteins at once, because otherwise your body needs to adapt. For example, if you do not eat proteins, your stomach will not produce enough acid to digest them. So you need to do that more gradually. Yes, okay. And it depends, of course, on the person. If you have problems, has problems, you may be careful by increasing. And I don't mean you have to eat 500 milligrams of proteins in the morning. You don't need to eat a lot. of proteins. You just have to replace your chocolate by some proteins.
Yes, what is exactly the place of fruit? Because it's not only the vitamins, but there's also sugar. So where do you place fruits? Fruits. So I see them just at 4.
Okay. Fruits, in terms of sugars, they are classified as high glycemic carbohydrates. So that means that if you are missing dopamine, don't eat fruits during your breakfast. Nevertheless, so you should eat fruits at 4 p.m. because it's the best timing for eating sugars with high glycemic index. Nevertheless, if you eat fruits which are high glycemic index foods with proteins and fats, they will behave like a complex carbohydrate. By mixing fruits with some fats and some fibers and some proteins, that's what we have to do when you are pre-diabetic or diabetic, for example. As lunch, you can combine fruits with, for example, some cheese, with proteins containing fats, with fibers, etc.
What would you suggest to eat between breakfast and lunch?
A soup. No, it depends what time you are eating your breakfast. If it's 6 p.m., okay. So you could eat a fruit. I mean, the best moment, the best timing is at 4 p.m. But of course, you could eat also something, a fruit at 11. But some proteins, an egg, soup, if it's possible, would be better.
To keep the meal attracting, if you were eating in the family or inviting people, would you have some websites where we could find some receipts to diversify a bit all this?
I have to check. In fact, I don't think that you need to eat this kind of thing all the time. You need to adapt according what the body needs, of course. But for example, for my children, they never had bread for lunch. They had always a mix of vegetables, some cereals, etc. So I think that you can have very attractive food if you don't need to you don't need to eat bread with just some ham, which you can put vegetables, you can put germ seeds, a lot of things, and the nutrition and the diet will be very attractive. So there are a lot of websites. The problem is that I don't have in mind one specific website, but there are a lot of books, for example. If you want to decrease the gluten, decrease, for example, dairy products, there are some books from, for example, Cupillard. You know this person, and she has written different books. But there are a lot of sites, websites. So I will try. I will try to put some maybe at the end of the presentation I will give you. I can try to find maybe some books or some websites. Okay?
Will be decisive. Other questions?
You spoke a lot about different oils. What about different seeds, like linen seeds, sesame seeds, and others? That's the first question. The second question, coffee. In one of the slides you asked to reduce the intake of coffee, but I think this is a problem for many of us, at least for me.
So the seeds are quite nice to provide you, for example, lean seeds. But you have to mix them, and then we'll give you some omega-3. And so put some different types of seeds would provide you additional vitamins, minerals, etc. So it's good. That's what I'm doing the whole time, to put everything, so you get that reason the food can be very attractive because we are putting a lot of things. But keep in mind that be careful if you are mixing different foods, and if your digestion is bad, you will have problems. So if you have problems to digest, keep it simple. Just one vegetable, and if it's okay, you can mix everything you want. So seeds, and the other question was? Coffee. Yes, of course. But coffee, I would say that was the same problem, because coffee is also a pleasure. So if you are drinking coffee just to give you energy, that's one point. If you are drinking coffee but because you like coffee, you can say, okay, just keep coffee, but just drink one small coffee with a very good coffee. Just select the best one you can. And you can use teas, special teas that can boost you also. And you can find several teas. I don't say in English, réglisse, licorice. Licorice, for example, based, that will boost your, and there are some teas based on licorice that will help your adrenal glands in the morning. Also, you can find some coffee that will have not the bad effects of the coffee, the natural coffee. And you can find in some organic stores, it's like the Key Cafe coffee. Key coffee, but it's not the same taste. It's not the same taste. And the problem with caffeine and drinking a lot of coffee, you will lose your magnesium a lot. Also, if you are stressed and if you are doing a lot of exercise, don't forget that you will also lose your magnesium if you are making a lot of exercise. For example, if you are going to the sport, doing exercise 3 or 4 times a week, be careful, you must compensate your magnesium loss as well. And for the children, it's very important, because sometimes children are hyperactive, they are stressed because they are doing a lot of sports and they are losing the magnesium as well.
I would like to ask if it's okay to drink almond milk and oat milk and other milk like this.
Almond milk, when? In the morning? Or
anytime.
So usually I say cow milk, etc. That. So please replace by vegetable or milks. Okay. It depends on what milk. If you are drinking rice milk, for example, that's bad because your glycemic index will increase. They have very high glycemic index. So you can use other almond oils, etc. Almond milk, sorry. And you can find different types in the organic stores. Don't drink a lot soy, because soy is bad for your intestine. So it depends on the quantity. I would say always, like, I don't know if you know Tati Loers. Tati Loers, I'm coach for her. So okay, it's not always the quantity. It's a quantity, but also how often are you eating the same. So please change. And if you are doing that, I think there's no problem.
Thank you.
I have a question concerning fruit and sugar, because, for instance, I do not like bananas so much, because most of which you're buying, I have the feeling it's too sweet. Therefore, is it perhaps reasonable, can you say it's in general, for all sorts of people, reasonable to buy certain sorts of banana, perhaps the greener ones, the non-mature ones, and the same problem I find sometimes with apples. They are so sweet, I don't like them. Is there a difference between apples, or is it also dependent from the person?
Of course, there are a lot of different species of apples, bananas. Don't forget the bananas when they are coming to your place. They are coming from outside. It took time. There's a long storage, and something. Very often they put a lot of additives to avoid to keep your bananas in good shape when they are coming in your plate. So in terms of apples, there is no rule. For example, it's known that by eating some apples you can amplify some allergic reactions, for example. If you are allergic to some pollens, for example, with some species of apples, so not the same. So you have to taste and to eat what you prefer. Because eat is very important. It's not always to provide a brain functioning. It's also a pleasure. A pleasure. So please, keep it as a pleasure.
You have to try moderately to check whether it fits your particular characteristics of your body. Don't make dramatic changes, that's the message. Just adjust, try to improve, make changes, and see whether you feel better.
And these changes, because for me it's not, I don't see that like, it's very hard. It must be kept as a pleasure as well. But if you observe that, in fact, by changing your breakfast, you are in good shape, you have more energy, of course, it's better for you and also for your motivation.
About cow's milk. I consume quite a lot cow's milk to put in my tea with the breakfast cereals. But is it something that should be avoided and replaced by almond milk? Because my wife, nags me all day, every day, almost. Avoid cow milk and replace it with something else.
And the cow milk that I consume
is bio, because it says on the label, bio. I don't know how to believe it or not.
There's always a debate. Even bio, does that mean sometimes that everything is okay? Huh? Okay. And in fact, the problem is it contains a lot of hormones that are not very useful for your body. For example, it has been shown that it can promote prostate cancer because of the presence of hormones. And so there's a publication showing that high consumption of this milk during a lot of years will promote prostate cancer. For example, if you have breast cancer, you should avoid this kind of white milk. And also, there is not a good ratio between calcium with the different minerals. So even bio. If it's not bio, you have additional hormones. Okay. So I think there's a reason how, if you like, you can just put just some drops. If you are drinking 1 liter, it's different, okay? So to me, it's also a question of enjoy what you are eating and what quantity are you eating. If you are sad because you need to change and eat a different milk, is it the good solution? It depends on the quantity. If you are just making some drops from it, it's not a problem, but it will depend on you. If you are, we must choose our diet in a more global fashion. Not only say, okay, this diet is good, it's because it has been said during the conference, but for you, what would be the best? Maybe not the same as your colleague.
My wife.
Oh, your wife. Especially what? Yes.
Last question. The lady in the back.
What about smoked mackerel? Is that the
mic,
smoked
please.
Mackerel?
Use your mic, please.
Smoked. Smoked mackerel.
It's okay if you are not eating only this kind of food. Always the same. You can change.
Never abuse
No,
it.
smoked, because smoked salmon, smoked fish, etc. But they are smoked. So in fact, we know that there is some impact on your health as well. If it's the only sources of omega-3, okay, it depends on what amount are you eating. I'm eating smoked fish as well, but I'm trying to put sometimes one smoked fish once a week and to eat all the type of sources of omega-3 in the same week. We must have in mind that we need to select according to our choice, be the right choices as well, also be in an intelligent manner. Don't eat always the same thing all the time. Change.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.